Hi guys, welcome back to Hither Green TMD in O Gauge, and today's video is the continuation of the Class 50 weathering project. I enjoyed my holiday, back from holiday, had loads of issues, car breakdowns since coming back from holiday, and other bits and pieces that's really drained me of any willingness to get on with doing any modelling. However, today we're back in the modelling room, and today we're going to progress the 50 to the point where we've faded the paint, we've highlighted and picked out some of the details on the body side grills, etc., and it's ready for blending in with the airbrush. So for those of you who have been here before and those who are new to this channel, all my videos are sorted into playlists, so there are several different subjects involved in my video stream, but if you are after a particular type of video, please remember that you can scoot around the other things and go straight into the playlist. O Gauge, Hither Green, Land Rover, Star Wars stuff, you know, everything is all in individual playlists, so it helps you navigate around the site. So remember that top tip, use the playlist. So anyway, we'll go off to the workbench and we'll get on with cracking this weathering project on the 50. So where we're at the minute is we've got a bit of blue on the red on the nameplate. So the red is coming through from behind the blue. We've got a few white chips in the blue paint to the undercoat below. And what I just want to do first is just to feather the edge of the blue and the grey, maybe a bit of red here and there, just a little bit. And what I'm going to use for that is the Humbrol Matte 34 white and an old stiff slightly uneven brush. Don't know where the handle went, it snapped off obviously at some stage, so I'm just going to mix the paint. We'll get a bit on there, a bit of tissue to clean the brush off, and then we'll just lightly go over a couple of places where the blue paint etc would have rubbed off. So for this little video we're going to concentrate just around the door area, so you don't have to see me do the entire loco. So we're literally just going to load up the brush with the white paint, clean it off on the tissue so there is very little paint left on the brush. We'll get as much off as we can. And then like an area at the bottom of the door which would have had a certain amount of kicking to get the door open, driver's bag scuffs. I'm just going to gently mark the bottom of the door there like that, a couple of little bits just to, and then get some more paint off the brush. Just feather up the edge. And fade it out a touch here and there. Just like that. And if we think it's a little bit much in a place like the bottom of the door there, just get a bit of white spirit on a cotton bud and just lift a little bit of that off again. The main part of the panel, so it's just the tiniest little bits of paint left feathered out, and we can do the top edge of the red here a bit. On the edge of the grey. I'm concentrating on the edges. Again, just lift off some of it. It just adds a bit of detail when you start to soften some of the edges. Now we can also use another little brush and be more direct in the area, so we'll just get a little bit and just feather the edge of the red a little bit where it's been through the carriage washer. Showing up some of the brush marks like around on this corner lip here. And then again, a bit of white spirit. Just lift some of it back towards the edge. And I shall just continue that along the rest of the lines, and I'll come back when we're done. So again, I'll demonstrate here on this cab end. I've got this flat brush this time. It's not a bad little brush, it's quite decent. Tiny little dab of paint on the end, dab it off on the tissue so there's not much left, and just streak off the white. Place the brush on the white and just dab it about a bit, a little bit more paint. And just to break off the edge. We'll do the blue here, where the driver's been kicking it a bit. And around the door handle. Keys have been scratching around. And take a bit of the edges off here. Been through the washing plant a few times. Taking a bit of paint off the edge. Simple as that, and that just breaks up, makes the paint a bit faded and weathered. Pick up a few highlights here on the brackets around the steps, the edge of the steps. Bottom edge down here again. Bit of the yellow, just randomly along this crease line there. We'll just highlight a little bit there, just like that, just so it looks like it's thinning the paint slightly. And I shall continue with the other side of the logo. So that's where we are with the white applied. So we'd already previously done the grey feathering on the roof to show wear through to the previous grey coloured roof, and we've done a few bits of chipped paints with just dabbing on a bit of white and dry brushing to simulate the feathering edges where the paint's wearing thin on the body side, and the little dabbly bits here and there where things get chipped and marked on corners and things. So what we're now going to do is the cab front. The yellow is rather bright. Again, same brush. I'm going to use my flat brush. It's rail match faded, slightly faded yellow, I think it is. Dry brush it again, and brush in downward direction, straight down. I don't know if you can just see the change in hue there. It's just slightly paler. So using the brush here, you just pick up areas and just vertical strokes. Not worried about the jumpers. This is just same as the body side, highlighting areas. We're going to paint the jumper again afterwards. It just highlights and tones down the oranginess of the Heljan yellow from the cab front. Just tones it down a touch. And not worry about an even coat, because we're trying to simulate layers of paint. But trying to do this around the camera isn't easy. So I want an effect of brush marks on the yellow. Just like that. It just fades it down a bit and allows us to it just fades it down a bit too much, so dry the brush on the tissue and then dry brush it off, clean the brush. So we just lift the yellow back off. The paint. So we get a bit of variation in the yellow tones. And that should do us, I reckon. And as you can see from the jumper, it's just picked up a bit of yellow. That doesn't matter at the minute because we're going to repaint that. But I think that gives the effect that I want quite nicely. So we're going to do one more thing today. Just put that back down there again. And that is to use a dark wash to pick out the grills and a couple of bits of the detail and on the cab front. So for this bit we're going to use the MIG enamel dark wash that was in the weathering staining box kit thing that I showed you the other day, and it is dead simple to use because it's already mixed. Please just make sure you give it a good shake first, mix up. Get a nice soft brush. I'll just use this one here, it's a size O. Get a nice big pool of it on the brush. Just tip it in the corners and I hope you can see it run along the edge of the wheels. Just literally load it into the grills and just let it do its thing. Easy as that, and I'm just going to go around all the grills. Let's lift it off the edge there, cotton bud. And it actually looks less pronounced. And the reason I run it just at the edge is because that is where the carriage washer will struggle to get it out from. But again, you can make your own washes out of black or dark browns or greys. Just mix paint, pigment out of a tin. In this case white, you know, you could use white or fade, which we'll be doing after this layer. Part of the next stage for fading. You know, you can mix some of that there in thinners and just apply it the same way as this, as long as it's really thin and runny, sort of 90% thinners, and it will flow and do what you want. So just to soften it a little bit along the edges, work it into the corners. Clean end again, we'll just lift it off the white a bit. What we can do again, just a little bit of white spirit, sorry, methylated spirits I'm using here, just to moisten the cotton bud, just lift it off the white tops. You can do just to bring the blue back through in places. You don't want it too even. And we leave that to dry, and whilst that's drying, with my little brush here, we're going to continue on to the next bit. In this case I'm now going to put a bit around the door handles. Dirt traps in there, that's a dirt trap, both door handles, in the door frame, and just let it run up there, look. It highlights the details as well as everything else. In and around the step here, just let it run through. Brackets. Again, just wipe it off in a downward motion. the gutter rail at the top. Like that. And just do the roof grills exactly the same. Just like that. And everywhere there is a bit of detail, you can just drop a drip. So again, we've got the roof gutter up there, just let that flow through there, around the door, window frames, little dirt trap. Door handles. Bottom step of the door. You just use your finger. I reckon that is due for the side here. And we'll now go on to the cab front. So again, on the cab front, we'll just drip a bit around the details, the handrails, the jumper brackets, into the headlight surrounds, the marker light surrounds. It just runs around and highlights some of the detail, and as it dries a little bit lighter, if you want to darken a little bit more, you can just go around and add a touch more. Now we're going to be doing more weathering on the front after this. This is just initial, just highlighting certain details, handrails, washer bottles, jets, lamp brackets, around on the jumpers. Looks a bit rough, doesn't it? So what we do now, we just get cotton bud and start scrubbing. again in an up and down direction, because we want the dirt to flow downwards. And then we get a nice big soft brush and blend it in. It's a dry brush, nothing on it. And it just evens it out, and then again we can just come back in where we want it picked out again, back in around the step. And the headlight bezel again, just rerun it around. Remember, we're doing this very dirty, so all these little blobs don't matter. And it'll all be evened out, as I said before, with the airbrush when we go over it. So it's coming along pretty much how I want it. Second coat just makes a little bit of difference there. And just use the wash to darken down the jumper a bit. It helps show up the GEC on the front of the panels. And we'll just go around the top handrails as well, and the ledge. And just allow it to run around. It's a wash, so around the window frames. And it just adds that last bit of detail. So I'm now going to allow this logo to dry, and then I'll grab a couple of photographs and show you what stage we're up to, ready for blending in with the airbrush and streaking with the airbrush. So there we go guys, I hope that has been useful to you. Any questions, by all means ask in the usual places. Enjoy modelling, and I'll catch you next time and we'll finish this job off. See you soon.